true for wildfire-prone areas, and true for earthquake zones as well. Next slide. The exposure that we're talking about, and we all know it's real, we all know it's profound, we all read studies on it, but when we think about our municipalities, when we think about the cost to municipalities, when we think about municipalities' budgets already overtaxed, overtrained, and not able to meet their obligations now, when we think about the competitiveness within municipalities, that being we all want to attract the best businesses, the largest universities, we want to attract the jobs to our municipalities. Unless we address these issues well in advance through our planning, through our zoning, through our policies, we're going to be faced with problems that make it very undesirable for companies to want to set up shop and build new businesses and bring 5,000 jobs into our community. So regional communities are becoming increasingly vulnerable to these extreme events. One indicator, which I'll talk about a bit more, is shrinking insurance coverage. We know that insurance is crucial, a crucial component of resilience, and the availability of insurance, the perils we're talking about, with the greatest potential for harm, is a bellwether of future adaptive capacity. Next slide, please. So what does it mean? It means that climate change means that hazards will all rise, and we're certainly seeing every sign of that. The only way to hold risk steady or even to reduce it is to either reduce our exposure to that hazard, i.e. where we build, where we operate, or reduce our vulnerability, i.e. how we build and how we operate. We've got some opportunity and the ability to act in both cases, and we ought to be thinking about it, and again, sooner rather than later, and while there is still time to act. Next slide. So I'm not going to go too deep into the risk management framework, and again, there's a far smarter person than me on these issues coming up. But let me just talk a little bit about the relation here and why insurance works best when it's part of a larger risk management framework that seeks to prevent losses from happening and to reduce the impact of those events that really are truly catastrophic. We know that when risks are not managed, when we build wherever and however we want without regard to the risk of loss, insurance quickly becomes unaffordable. To date, we've seen political responses to higher insurance costs, and we've been able to create public risk pools like the National Flood Insurance Program or the California Earthquake Authority or Citizens Insurance in Florida, and the list goes on. But these are offered in most states as insurers of last resort for those who cannot find coverage in the private market. If those public pools are insuring properties at high risk of loss, the programs clearly are running the risk of adverse selection, taking all the bad risk without any of the good risk to balance it out, and they run the risk of insolvency. There is no insurance company or even public or public and private entity that could survive. And so the work that planners do to set building codes, to create incentives or restrictions on buildings in hazardous areas, to plan defensive infrastructure, is critical to maintaining insurability, which of course is not an end in and of itself, but it is a key part of maintaining the financial security and the resilience of our economies. The effects of risk-based planning are not marginal savings. If all of Florida were to improve its building stock